My name is Amber Stone. I'm 32, a financial planner in a small Missouri town. Growing up, I was the kid who stepped up after my rock passed when I was 15. I've been the one holding my family together, paying for my mom's Christmas gift shop, my younger brother's college tuition, my older sister's lifestyle. Thousands of dollars every month straight from my pocket. But at our family's Christmas dinner last year, my mom looked me dead in the eyes and yelled, "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything." My sister chimed in, telling me to leave if I had any self-respect. I didn't scream back. I just walked out, my heart pounding, their words burning in my head. A week later, my mom called me in tears. I replied with just one short sentence, enough to leave her speechless. But that was only the beginning of what was to come. What about you? If it were you, what would you say in that moment? Share your answer in the comments. It started when I was 15, after my dad Robert passed away from a heart attack. He was my rock, taught me how to budget, how to stay strong when things got tough. His death left a hole in our family, and I decided I'd fill it no matter the cost. By 18, I was juggling 2 jobs, waitressing and tutoring, while studying finance, determined to keep my mom Elaine, my older sister Kristen, and my younger brother Tyler afloat. I didn't want Dad's memory to fade into a house full of unpaid bills. Mom runs a Christmas gift shop in our small Missouri town. It's her dream, but it's never made real money. For years, I've covered the rent, $2,000 a month, plus another $5,000 to stock it with snow globes, ornaments, and holiday knickknacks. I'd sit with Mom's ledgers, balancing her books, finding ways to stretch her budget. She never asked how I managed. She just assumed the money would come. At first, I thought I was doing right by Dad, keeping his family together. But Mom never said thank you. She'd show off the shop to customers, boasting about her hard work while I was the one keeping the lights on. Tyler, my younger brother, is 22, chasing an art degree at college. His tuition, $10,000 a year, comes straight from my savings. I've paid for his dorm, his paintbrushes, even his laptop when it broke last semester. He's got talent, but he's never worked a steady job. Once he called me at midnight asking for $500 for a special project. I sent it, even though it meant dipping into my emergency fund. When I suggested he get a part-time job, he laughed it off, said I was too uptight. Mom took his side, told me to let him find his passion. I swallowed my frustration and kept writing the checks. Kristen, my older sister, is 35, a marketing assistant who acts like she's the family's golden child. I've been covering her car payments, $400 a month, because she claims her salary doesn't stretch far enough. She lives in a sleek apartment, throws lavish parties, and buys clothes she doesn't need. Last spring, she asked for $1,500 to get through a rough patch. I sent it, even though I had to cancel my own plans for a weekend getaway. She never mentioned paying me back, just posted photos from a trip to Miami, all smiles and cocktails. Mom would beam, calling Kristen our star, while I sat there feeling like a bank account with legs. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was how they treated me. At family gatherings, Mom would rave about Kristen's latest social media campaign or Tyler's abstract paintings, while my work helping families in town plan their retirements got nothing but blank stares. Once I mentioned how much I was juggling, how the shop's rent was eating into my savings. Mom cut me off, said I was doing fine and shouldn't make it about myself. Kristen smirked, muttered I was always whining. Tyler just scrolled his phone, ignoring me. I'd leave those dinners feeling smaller, like my efforts didn't matter. The worst was when they compared me to Kristen. Mom would say things like, "If only you had Kristen's charm," or "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Kristen would laugh, toss her hair, and say I was too boring with my spreadsheets and budgets. Tyler joined in, once saying I should lighten up and stop acting like the family accountant. I wanted to scream that I was the reason they had a roof, a shop, a college degree in progress, but I didn't. I kept quiet, kept paying, kept hoping they'd see me one day. It started to wear me down. I'd lie awake at night wondering why I was killing myself for people who didn't care. Dad's voice would echo in my head. his lessons about responsibility, about family. He'd been the one to hold us together, to make me feel seen. Without him, I felt like I was carrying his burden, trying to be the glue for a family that didn't even notice I was cracking. I'd look at my bank statement, see the thousands I'd sent to Mom, Tyler, Kristen, and feel a knot in my stomach. I was 32 with no savings for myself, no life of my own, just a family that took and took. Last summer, I hit a breaking point. I told Mom I might need to cut back on the shop's rent. Business was slow, and my clients were struggling too. She didn't even look at me, just said, "Figure it out, Amber. You always do." Kristen overheard, laughed, and said I was too cheap to help family. Tyler texted me later asking for another $200 for art supplies like nothing had happened. I sent the money, but something in me shifted. I started to see them for what they were. People who'd never stop taking, who'd never see me as more than a paycheck. I didn't know it then, but that moment planted a seed, one that would grow into something I never expected. I had spent weeks planning the Christmas dinner, hoping this year would be different. That day, my mom's house was packed with family, neighbors, and customers from her Christmas gift shop. I'd cooked the turkey, set the table, even bought the wine, everything to make it perfect. For once, I thought maybe they'd see me, not just the money I sent every month. But as the evening wore on, that hope started to crumble. The dining room was crowded, plates piled high with mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. Mom was at the head of the table, laughing with her friends about her shop's record sales. Kristen was showing off her new phone, bragging about a work project she'd barely started. Tyler was sketching on a napkin, ignoring everyone. I sat quietly, passing the gravy, trying to join the conversation. Then Mom turned to me, her smile fading. "Amber," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the chatter, "you didn't chip in for the decorations this year. You're always so stingy with the family." The room went quiet. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Stingy? I'd paid thousands to keep her shop running, her house standing, her kids fed. Before I could respond, Kristen leaned forward, her eyes glinting. "Honestly, Amber, you're so selfish sometimes. All you do is take. You've never contributed anything real to this family." Her words hit like a slap, echoing Mom's accusation. I looked at Tyler, hoping for a glance of support. He just shrugged, kept sketching like I wasn't even there. My heart pounded, a mix of anger and hurt. I wanted to scream, list every dollar I'd poured into their lives, every sacrifice I'd made since Dad died, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I felt the weight of every ignored effort, every silent dinner crushing me. Mom wasn't done. She leaned closer, her voice louder now. "You sit there acting like you're above us, but you've never done anything to make this family proud." The neighbors shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Kristen smirked, adding, "If you had any self-respect, you'd just leave. Stop dragging us down." I felt my face burn, my hands trembling. I looked around the table, Mom's accusing stare, Kristen's smug grin, Tyler's indifference. This was the family I'd given everything for, the ones I'd stayed up nights worrying about, balancing their budgets while mine dwindled. I thought of Dad, how he'd always made me feel seen, how he'd never let this happen. But he was gone, and I was alone in a room full of people. I pushed my chair back, the scrape loud in the silence. "I'm done," I said, my voice low but steady. No one stopped me. Mom rolled her eyes, muttered something about me being dramatic. Kristen laughed, said good riddance. Tyler didn't even look up. I grabbed my coat and walked out, the cold Missouri air hitting my face like a wake-up call. My car was parked down the street, and I sat there for a moment, staring at the house I'd paid for, the lights I'd funded, the family that didn't want me. The morning after I walked out of Mom's Christmas dinner, I sat at my kitchen table, coffee gone cold, and made a decision that felt like waking up from a long sleep. I was done being their safety net. I started with the bank. I'd been sending automatic payments every month to cover the rent for Mom's house, keeping a roof over her head. I called and canceled the transfers, my voice calm, but my heart pounding. The bank rep asked if I was sure. I didn't hesitate. "Yes." Next, I reached out to the property manager for Mom's Christmas gift shop. My name was on the lease as the guarantor, and I'd been funneling thousands to keep it stocked with holiday trinkets. I told them I was done. The manager sounded stunned, said they'd notify Mom soon. I hung up, feeling a weight lift, like I was finally standing up straight. Then there was Tyler's college tuition. I'd been covering his classes, his dorm, everything, so he could chase his art degree without a care. I logged into the university's payment portal and removed my card. The next tuition deadline was coming up, and without my money, Tyler would get a wake-up call. It didn't feel cruel. It felt fair. I wasn't his bank anymore. Kristen was next. Her car payments had been coming out of my account for years, ever since she claimed she couldn't afford them. I called the finance company and stopped the auto pay. She'd get a bill soon, and she'd have to deal with it. For the first time, I wasn't worried about their reactions. I was setting myself free. It didn't take long for the fallout to start. A couple of days after the dinner, Mom called, her voice sharp and panicked. "The landlord says the rent didn't go through. What did you do?" I let it go to voicemail. She called again, leaving messages that got angrier each time. "This is your fault, Amber. You know we need that money." I didn't reply, just deleted the messages and moved on. A few days later, the gift shop's property manager reached out to Mom. She texted me, her words frantic. "They're saying we might lose the shop. You need to fix this." I didn't respond. The shop was her dream, but it had been my money keeping it alive. Stocking shelves, paying suppliers, covering rent. Without me, it was crumbling, and fast. By the following week, suppliers stopped delivering and Mom got a notice: pay up or close the doors. Tyler caught on around the same time. His university sent him a warning about his unpaid tuition. He called me, sounding more annoyed than scared. "Hey, the school's saying I owe money. You didn't pay. What's your problem?" I didn't pick up. A second email from the school warned he'd be dropped from his classes if the balance wasn't cleared soon. Tyler texted again, all caps, "You're messing up my life. Fix it." I left him on read. He'd skated by for years, now he'd have to figure it out. Kristen took the longest to notice. About a week after the dinner, she called, her tone dripping with irritation. "My car payment didn't go through. You stopped it." "Are you kidding me?" She didn't wait for an answer, just kept going. "You're so selfish, Amber. Always making things harder for us." I let it go to voicemail. The finance company followed up with a late notice warning her about repossession. She sent me a screenshot adding, "You're ruining everything. Thanks a lot." I didn't budge. Their reactions didn't surprise me. They didn't ask why I'd stopped. Didn't pause to think about what they'd said at the dinner. They just blamed me, like always expecting me to jump back in and save them. I thought of Dad, how he'd taught me family was about balance, give and take. I'd given everything, my savings, my time, my dreams, and they'd taken it all, offering nothing but complaints. Their anger only proved I'd made the right call. I needed to talk to someone, so I called my best friend Holly. I hadn't told her about the dinner, but I needed to let it out. Over coffee, I spilled everything, not just their words, but the years of carrying their weight. Holly didn't hold back. "They've been using you, Amber," she said, her voice firm. "You don't owe them your life." Her words cut deep, but they rang true. I wasn't the bad guy, no matter how much they tried to paint me as one. By the next week, the consequences were hitting hard. Mom's shop was on the brink, with suppliers pulling back and customers noticing empty shelves. Tyler was scrambling, looking for loans to cover his tuition, but coming up short. Kristen was dodging calls from the finance company, her social media full of complaints about hard times. My phone kept buzzing with their messages, anger pleas, accusations, but I stayed firm. I'd spent too long being their fallback. Now they'd have to face the mess they'd made. As the dust settled from my decision to stop paying for everything, my phone became a battlefield. Mom, Kristen, and Tyler didn't take long to realize their world was unraveling, and they made sure I knew who they blamed. It started with calls, Endless calls, each one sharper than the last, piling on guilt like I'd burn their lives to the ground. But it was Kristen's move online that turned things uglier, and it was Holly who helped me fight back. Mom was the first to come at me. A few days after the notices hit, she called, her voice trembling with rage. "How could you do this to us, Amber? The shop's falling apart. The landlord's breathing down my neck, and you're just sitting there." She didn't ask why I'd stopped. Didn't mention the dinner where she'd called me selfish. It was all my fault. Like always. I let her voicemails stack up, each one a mix of accusations and pleas. "You're tearing this family apart," she said in one, her tone breaking. "Fix it, Amber. You owe us that much." I didn't owe her anything, not anymore. But her words still stung like a knife twisting in an old wound. Tyler was next, blowing up my phone with texts that swung between anger and desperation. "The school's gonna kick me out." He wrote his words sloppy and rushed. "You couldn't just pay the tuition? You're ruining my future." He called me selfish, said I was punishing him for no reason. I stared at his messages, remembering how he'd shrugged at the dinner, too busy sketching to care. He'd never once thanked me for keeping him in college, never asked how I managed. Now, with his art degree on the line, he was suddenly full of opinions about my choices. I didn't reply, but each text felt like a punch testing my resolve. Kristen, though, took it to another level. About a week after her car payment bounced, she called, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you're so high and mighty, Amber, cutting us off like this? You're nothing but a petty control freak." She didn't stop there. She went online, posting on social media for the whole town to see. Her post was a masterpiece of lies, painting me as the greedy sister who'd abandoned her family, who'd let Mom's shop fail, and Tyler's dreams crash. "Some people only care about themselves," she wrote, tagging me so everyone knew who she meant. She added a photo of herself looking sad, standing outside Mom's shop with a caption about family betrayal. The post spread like wildfire, racking up likes and comments from people who didn't know the half of it. "How could you do this to your mom?" one stranger wrote. "You're heartless," said another. I saw the post late one night, scrolling through my phone, my stomach sinking. The comments piled up, neighbors, old classmates, even people I'd helped with their finances, all chiming in to call me out. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. I'd spent years keeping this family together, and now I was the villain in their story. I thought of Dad, how he'd always said to hold my head high, but this felt like drowning. I almost called Kristen to defend myself, to list every dollar I'd poured into their lives, but I stopped. I wasn't going to beg for their approval, not anymore. That's when Holly stepped in. My best friend Holly had been my rock since we were kids, the one person who saw through my family's nonsense. I'd told her about the dinner, about cutting them off, and she'd been furious on my behalf. When she saw Kristen's post, she didn't hesitate. She wrote her own post, laying out the truth in a way I never could. For years, Amber paid for her mom's shop, her brother's college, her sister's car, thousands every month with no thanks, she wrote. She gave everything, and they called her selfish. Now she's standing up for herself, and they're twisting it to play the victim. Holly tagged Kristen, Mom, and Tyler, making sure the town saw the other side. She included screenshots of my bank transfers, blurred for privacy but clear enough to show the money I'd sent over the years. Holly's post hit hard. People started commenting, shocked, some even apologizing for jumping to conclusions. A few of Mom's customers messaged me directly, saying they had no idea how much I'd done. One wrote, "Your mom always made it sound like she was doing it all herself." The tide was turning, but Kristen doubled down. She replied to Holly's post, calling me a liar, saying I'd exaggerated my help to make her look bad. Tyler chimed in, commenting, "Amber's always been jealous of us. She's just causing drama." Mom stayed quiet online, but she called again, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "This is getting out of hand, Amber. Let's talk, please." I didn't pick up. Their words online and off were just noise, now trying to pull me back into their chaos. Holly wasn't done. She called me the next day, fired up. "You're not letting them win this, Amber," she said. They've been dragging your name through the mud, but the truth's out there now. She was right. Her post had shifted things, made people question Kristen's story. I felt a flicker of hope, not because the town's opinion mattered, but because I wasn't alone. Holly had my back, and that was enough to keep me standing. A few weeks after the social media storm, I found myself sitting in a quiet office staring at a stack of papers that held the key to my freedom. Holly had pushed me to meet with a lawyer, insisting I needed to protect myself from my family's chaos. She was right. The calls, the texts, Kristen's posts, they were all trying to drag me back into their mess, but I was done playing their game. Today, I was meeting my family at the office of my lawyer David to take back control of Mom's Christmas gift shop, the one I'd been bankrolling for years. I arrived early, my stomach in knots, but my resolve firm. David, a calm man with sharp eyes and a knack for cutting through nonsense, had reviewed the shop's lease. My name was on it as the guarantor, a detail Mom had conveniently ignored when she claimed the shop as her own. David laid it out plain: I had the legal right to take control, to decide its fate. I didn't want to run a gift shop, but I wasn't going to let Mom keep using my name and my money without a say. Mom, Kristen, and Tyler walked in together, their faces a mix of anger and desperation. Mom's eyes were red like she'd been crying, but her jaw was set ready for a fight. Kristen stood tall, arms crossed, her glare sharp enough to cut glass. Tyler slouched, avoiding my gaze, his usual indifference replaced by something heavier, maybe fear. David greeted them politely, offered coffee, but they just sat down, staring at me like I was the enemy. Mom spoke first, her voice low but shaking. "Amber, this has gone too far. You're destroying everything I've built. The shop's all I have. How could you let it fall apart?" She leaned forward, hands clasped like she could will me back to the old days when I'd fix everything with a check. I didn't flinch. Her words hurt, but I'd heard them before, blame dressed up as pain. Kristen jumped in, her tone biting. "You think you're some hero, don't you? Taking over the shop, acting like you're better than us? You're just selfish. Amber always have been." She flipped her hair, a move I'd seen 1,000 times, meant to dismiss me. Her words echoed her online posts, but face to face they landed differently, heavier, meaner. I clenched my fists under the table, keeping my face steady. Tyler finally looked up, his voice quieter but no less accusing. "You know I'm gonna get kicked out of school because of you. My whole future's on the line and you don't even care." He sounded like a kid caught in a lie, not the brother I'd supported for years. I wanted to remind him of every tuition payment, every late-night call for just a few hundred, but I held back. This wasn't about proving myself anymore. David cleared his throat, sliding the lease across the table. "Let's focus on the facts," he said, his voice even. "Amber's name is on the lease as the guarantor. She's been paying the rent and operational costs for years. Legally, she has the right to assume control of the shop or walk away entirely." He looked at Mom, calm but firm. "Elaine, you've been running the business, but Amber's been funding it. Without her, there is no shop." Mom's face crumpled, but she didn't argue. Kristen, though, wasn't having it. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, pointing at me. "You can't just take Mom's shop. It's her life's work. You're stealing it." Her voice rose, and David raised a hand, cutting her off. "It's not stealing," he said. "It's Amber's legal right. She's been carrying the financial burden. The question is what happens next." I took a deep breath, meeting their eyes one by one. "I'm not here to steal anything," I said, my voice steady. "But I'm done letting you use me. I've paid for the shop, the house, Tyler's school, Kristen's car, everything. And all I got was blame. I'm taking control of the shop because my name's on the line, and I'm not letting it drag me down anymore." Mom's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were real or a tactic. "Amber, please," she said, her voice breaking. "We're family. We can work this out. Just pay the rent one more time, keep the shop open. I'll make it right, I promise." It was the closest she'd ever come to an apology, but it wasn't enough. I'd heard promises before, empty ones that left me emptier. Kristen leaned forward, her tone softer now, like she was trying a new angle. Look, Amber, we all got heated at Christmas. Let's move past it. You don't want the shop, let Mom keep it. We'll figure out the money. Her words were smooth, but her eyes were cold, calculating. I knew her game. She wanted me to back down to keep paying to stay the family's doormat. Tyler chimed in, his voice pleading. Yeah, Amber, come on. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to take you for granted. Just help me with school, and I'll get a job, I swear. He looked genuine for once, but I'd heard I'll get a job too many times. It was always the same promises they never kept. I shook my head, my heart heavy, but my mind clear. I've given you years of chances, I said. I'm not doing it anymore. The shop's in my name, and I'm deciding what happens to it. You want to save it? Figure it out without me. David nodded, sliding a document toward them, a transfer agreement that would put the lease in Mom's name if she could cover the costs. She couldn't, and we all knew it. Mom stood up, her chair scraping the floor. You're not my daughter, she said, her voice low and final. You're breaking this family apart. Kristen grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door, but not before shooting me a look that promised this wasn't over. Tyler followed, head down, saying nothing. They left, and the room felt quieter, heavier, like the air after a storm. David leaned back, giving me a small smile. You did well, he said. You stood your ground. I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt like I'd lost something, maybe the last piece of hope that my family could change. I thought of Dad, how he'd taught me to stand up for what's right, even when it hurts. This hurt, but it also felt like freedom. I left David's office with the papers signed, officially taking control of the shop. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it. Sell it, lease it out, or let it close. But it was my choice now. For the first time, I wasn't carrying their weight. Whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. Months after walking out of David's office with the shop's future in my hands, I stood at a crossroads I never imagined I'd reach. The weight of my family's expectations was gone, but so was the hope I'd held for years that they'd change. I'd taken back control not just of the shop, but of my life, and now I was ready to let go of the past entirely. What came next wasn't about them anymore. It was about me and the kind of life I wanted to build. The gift shop closed for good not long after our meeting with David. Without my money to keep it afloat, the shelves stayed bare and the landlord locked the doors. Mom didn't have the funds to take over the lease, and no amount of pleading could change that. I heard through Holly that Mom had tried to rally her customers to save the shop, but it was too late. The trinkets and holiday decorations she'd been so proud of were packed away, the sign above the door taken down. I didn't feel joy watching her dream fade, but I didn't feel guilt either. I'd carried it as long as I could. Tyler's college sent him packing around the same time. Without my tuition payments, he couldn't clear his balance, and the university dropped him from his classes. He'd been so sure I'd swoop in to save him, but when I didn't, he was left scrambling. Holly told me he'd moved back to town, crashing with friends, talking big about starting over but doing little to make it happen. I thought of all the nights I'd stayed up balancing his bills with mine and wondered why I'd ever thought he'd thank me. He didn't, and now he was learning what it meant to stand on his own. The house was the final blow for them. Mom couldn't cover the rent once my payments stopped, and the landlord wasn't in the mood for excuses. They were given notice to vacate, and by that winter they'd moved out. I didn't know where they went, maybe to a smaller place, maybe out of town. Kristen had been posting less online, her usual bravado replaced by vague complaints about hard times. Mom's calls had stopped, and Tyler's texts dried up. The silence was heavy, but it was also a relief. I'd spent years tethered to their chaos, and now that tether was cut. I could have stopped there, let the pieces fall and walked away. But I wanted more than just freedom from them. I wanted purpose. That's when I turned to something I'd never had time for before giving back. I'd always loved the idea of Christmas as a time for kindness, not just gifts, and I decided to put my energy there. I reached out to a local charity that ran a holiday program for families in need, food drives, toy donations, warm clothes for kids. I started small volunteering at their events, helping sort donations. But as I got more involved, I saw a chance to do something bigger. With the money I was no longer sending to my family, I invested in the charity's Christmas outreach. I funded a community dinner, the kind where everyone's welcome, no questions asked. I worked with the organizers to expand their toy drive, making sure kids in our town woke up to something special under their trees. It wasn't about being a hero, it was about creating the kind of warmth I'd always wanted from my own family but never got. The first time I saw a kid light up over a new jacket, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. This was what my money was meant for, not propping up people who'd never see my worth. Holly was right there with me, rolling up her sleeves at every event. She'd been my anchor through it all, the one who'd called out my family's lies and pushed me to keep going. Over coffee one afternoon, she grinned and said, "You're building something real here, Amber. They tried to tear you down, but look at you now." Her words hit deep, not because they were new, but because I finally believed them. I wasn't the selfish daughter or the jealous sister they'd painted me as. I was just me finding my way. Cutting ties with my family wasn't easy even after everything. I stopped answering their occasional messages, blocked their numbers, let go of the guilt that tried to creep back in. I didn't hate them. I just couldn't carry them anymore. Mom's voice still echoed sometimes, calling me heartless, but I drowned it out with the laughter at the charity dinners, the thank yous from strangers who didn't owe me anything. I thought of Dad often, how he'd taught me to value myself, to know when to walk away. He'd be proud, I think, seeing me finally live for myself. The lesson wasn't about winning or losing, it was about respect. For years, I'd given everything to people who didn't respect me, hoping they'd change. But respect starts within, with knowing your worth, and drawing a line when it's crossed. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish, it was survival. I'd spent too long bending over backward thinking love meant saying yes to everything. Now I knew better, love meant saying no when it mattered, even when it hurt. That winter, as I stood in the community center watching families share a meal I'd helped make possible, I felt free. Not the kind of free that comes from running away, but the kind that comes from standing firm. My family's house was gone, their shop shuttered, their lives upended, but I wasn't carrying that weight anymore. I was building something new, something mine, and for the first time, I wasn't looking back.